The war between Ukraine and Russia, which erupted with the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and escalated with the full-scale invasion in 2022, has entered a new and volatile phase. The August 2024 Ukrainian attack on Russian soil represents a significant escalation in this ongoing conflict.
And we turn now to events in Russia, and Moscow is introducing strict new security measures in 3 regions bordering Ukraine in response to this week's surprise incursion by Ukrainian forces into the Kursk region.
This bold move into Russia's Kursk region, involving coordinated military incursions rather than isolated strikes, marks a turning point in Ukraine's resistance against Russian aggression. The operation, marked by the capture of several settlements and the engagement of Russian forces within their own borders, demonstrates Ukraine's growing military capabilities and willingness to challenge Russia directly. This story delves into the details of the August 2024 attack, providing a comprehensive analysis of the operation, its historical context, and the broader implications for the ongoing conflict. By examining the motives behind the attack, the tactical execution, and the responses from both Russia and the international community, this narrative aims to offer a complete understanding of one of the most significant developments in the Ukrainian conflict to date. If you want to stay informed about global events that are rewriting history, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Historical context. The road to August 2024. The roots of the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia lie in the complex history of the post-Soviet space. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine emerged as an independent state, but its relationship with Russia remained fraught with tension. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, has consistently sought to maintain influence over its former Soviet territories, viewing Ukraine's Western-leaning policies and aspirations to join NATO as direct threats to its sphere of influence. The situation deteriorated rapidly in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea, leading to international condemnation and the imposition of sanctions by the West. This move was followed by the eruption of a separatist conflict in eastern Ukraine, where Russian-backed forces declared the independence of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Despite various attempts at ceasefire agreements, the conflict continued to simmer, eventually leading to the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022.
The U.S. warned all day of a full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, that it was imminent. Vladimir Putin has just addressed the Russian people moments ago, announcing what Putin called the start of a military special operation.
This invasion marked the beginning of a protracted and brutal war, characterized by widespread destruction, significant civilian casualties, and a complex web of international alliances and interventions. Throughout the conflict, Ukraine has received substantial military and financial support from Western nations, which has played a crucial role in bolstering its defenses and enabling it to mount a sustained resistance against Russian forces. In the years following the invasion, there were several instances of cross-border attacks, including drone strikes, sabotage operations, and artillery shelling, particularly in regions bordering Ukraine such as Belgorod, Kursk, and Bryansk. These attacks, while significant, were often isolated incidents, attributed to Ukrainian special forces or partisan groups. However, the August 2024 operation was different in its scale and impact, marking a new chapter in the conflict. The August 2024 attack. Detailed analysis. The attack on the Kursk region in August 2024 was a meticulously planned and executed military operation, representing the most significant Ukrainian incursion into Russian territory since the war began. The operation began in the early hours of August 10th, when Ukrainian forces launched a surprise attack on Russian positions near the border. This initial assault involved a combination of artillery barrages, drone strikes, and electronic warfare, aimed at disabling Russian communications and command structures. Tactical execution. The Ukrainian forces involved in the operation were a mix of regular army units and special forces, supported by tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery. The main thrust of the attack was directed towards the town of Rilsk, a strategically important location due to its proximity to major transportation routes and military installations. Ukrainian forces quickly overran the town's defenses, establishing a foothold in the region. The attack was characterized by several key tactical elements. 1. Surprise and speed. The operation was carefully timed to catch Russian forces off guard, taking advantage of a period of reduced military activity in the area. Ukrainian forces moved quickly to secure their objectives, overwhelming Russian defenses before they could mount an effective response. 2. Drone warfare. Drones played a crucial role in the operation, both for reconnaissance and for delivering precision strikes on key targets. Ukrainian drones, likely supplied by Western allies, were able to bypass Russian air defenses and hit critical infrastructure, including communication lines, supply depots, and command centers. This use of drones not only provided Ukrainian forces with real-time intelligence but also disrupted Russian military operations. 3. Electronic warfare. Ukrainian forces employed advanced electronic warfare tactics to disrupt Russian communications and radar systems. This included jamming Russian radio frequencies, disabling GPS signals, and interfering with drone operations. These tactics were aimed at creating confusion and disorganization within the Russian ranks, giving Ukrainian forces a tactical advantage on the ground. 4. Logistics and support. The operation was supported by a well-organized logistics network, which ensured that Ukrainian forces were supplied with the necessary ammunition, fuel, and medical supplies. This logistical support was crucial in maintaining the momentum of the attack and allowing Ukrainian forces to sustain their presence in the region despite Russian counterattacks. As Ukrainian forces pushed deeper into the Kursk region, they encountered stiff resistance from Russian troops, who quickly mobilized reinforcements to contain the incursion. Fierce battles ensued around key towns and strategic locations, with both sides suffering significant casualties. However, Ukrainian forces managed to hold their ground, establishing a defensive perimeter around the areas they had captured. Impact on Russian forces. The impact of the attack on Russian forces was profound. The incursion forced the Russian military to divert troops and resources from other fronts, weakening their overall strategic position in the conflict. The operation also exposed vulnerabilities in Russia's border defenses, raising serious questions about the effectiveness of their military strategy and preparedness. The attack has had a significant psychological impact on Russian forces as well. The sight of Ukrainian troops operating on Russian soil, capturing towns and engaging Russian forces in direct combat, has dealt a blow to Russian morale. For a military that has long prided itself on its ability to defend the homeland, this incursion represents a serious challenge to its image and capabilities. Strategic and tactical insights. The August 2024 attack provides several important insights into the evolving nature of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. From a strategic perspective, the operation demonstrates Ukraine's willingness and ability to conduct offensive operations on Russian soil, a significant escalation that challenges the traditional dynamics of the conflict. One of the primary motivations behind the attack was likely to shift the focus of the conflict away from Ukrainian territory and onto Russian soil. By taking the fight to Russia, Ukraine aims to force Moscow to reconsider its strategy and potentially negotiate an end to the conflict on more favorable terms. The attack also serves as a message to the Russian leadership and public that Ukraine is capable of striking deep into Russian territory, undermining the Kremlin's narrative that the war is a distant conflict that does not directly affect the Russian people. Tactical innovations. Tactically, the operation highlights the importance of coordination, intelligence, and the use of advanced technology in modern warfare. The successful integration of drones into the operation allowed Ukrainian forces to gather real-time intelligence, disrupt Russian defenses, and target critical infrastructure with precision. This use of technology is likely to become increasingly important in future conflicts, as both sides continue to develop and deploy advanced weaponry. The attack also underscores the importance of logistics in sustaining military operations. The ability of Ukrainian forces to maintain a steady supply of ammunition, fuel, and other essential supplies was crucial in allowing them to sustain their presence in the Kursk and resist Russian counterattacks. This logistical capability reflects the broader modernization of the Ukrainian military, which has been supported by Western countries in recent years. Strategic implications. The strategic implications of the attack are significant. By successfully carrying out an incursion into Russian territory, Ukraine has demonstrated that it is not only capable of defending its own territory, but also of taking the fight to the enemy. This shift in strategy is likely to have a profound impact on the course of the conflict, as it forces Russia to reconsider its approach and potentially divert resources away from its offensive operations in Ukraine. The attack also has the potential to influence the broader geopolitical landscape. Ukraine's success in carrying out such an operation may embolden other countries in the region to take a more assertive stance against Russia, particularly those that have been directly or indirectly affected by the conflict. This could lead to a further escalation of tensions in Eastern Europe and increase increase the risk of a broader conflict involving NATO and other Western allies. Implications for Russian military and society. The Ukrainian incursion into the Kursk region has significant implications for the Russian military and society. Militarily, the attack exposed weaknesses in Russia's border defenses and raised questions about the overall effectiveness of their strategy in the conflict. The fact that Ukrainian forces were able to penetrate so deeply into Russian territory suggests that Russia's military resources are being stretched thin, particularly as they continue to be engaged on multiple fronts in Ukraine. The attack also has the potential to affect Russian public opinion about the war. For much of the conflict, the Kremlin has portrayed the war as a necessary operation to protect Russian-speaking populations in Ukraine and to counter Western aggression. However, the incursion into Russian territory challenges this narrative and brings the realities of the conflict closer to home for many Russians. The sight of Ukrainian troops on Russian soil is likely to raise concerns about the Kremlin's ability to defend the country and could lead to increased public pressure on the government to end the conflict. From a political perspective, the attack may also have repercussions for the Russian leadership. President Vladimir Putin has staked much of his political capital on the success of the war in Ukraine, presenting it as a necessary and justified effort to restore Russia's influence in the Russian leadership has presented the war as a strategic necessity to protect Russia's sphere of influence and to counteract what it claims to be Western encroachment via NATO and the EU. However, the recent incursion into the Kursk region challenges this narrative on several levels, not least because it forces the Russian public to confront the possibility that the conflict, previously perceived as distant, is now capable of directly affecting them on their home soil. This shift in perception could be damaging to the Kremlin, particularly if it begins to erode public support for the war. While the Russian state has tightly controlled the media narrative around the conflict, ensuring that the majority of Russians view it through a lens of patriotism and defense against foreign threats, the Ukrainian attack presents a reality that is harder to spin. The fact that Ukrainian forces could launch an attack of this scale within Russian borders raises uncomfortable questions about the effectiveness of the Russian military and the competence of the leadership directing the war effort. In response to the Ukrainian incursion, there have been calls within Russia for a more aggressive military stance and increased defense spending, reflecting a growing sense of vulnerability among the Russian populace. However, there is also a risk that this could backfire. If the war drags on without a clear victory, or if the Russian military continues to suffer setbacks, public dissatisfaction could grow, potentially leading to increased domestic unrest. The economic strain of the war, compounded by international sanctions, could exacerbate these issues, leading to a more precarious situation for the Russian government. Furthermore, the attack has likely intensified discussions within Russia's military and political elite about the future direction of the war. There may be debates about whether to double down on the current strategy, seek a negotiated settlement, or consider other, possibly more drastic military actions. The course that Russia chooses will have significant implications not just for the outcome of the war, but for the broader stability of the region and international relations. International reactions. Global perspectives on the attack.
Demonstrated the lack of a chain of command. I mean, Putin has got 3 different organizations trying to respond to the Ukrainians.
The international reaction to the Ukrainian attack on Russian soil has been varied, reflecting the complex geopolitical landscape surrounding the conflict. Western nations, which have largely supported Ukraine both diplomatically and militarily, have expressed cautious support for the operation, viewing it as a justified response to Russia's ongoing aggression. However, there are also concerns about the potential for further escalation and the risks of the conflict spreading beyond Ukraine's borders. In Europe, NATO member states have reiterated their support for Ukraine, emphasizing the importance of upholding international law and defending the sovereignty of nations. However, there is also a recognition that this attack marks a significant escalation in the conflict, and there are worries that it could provoke a more severe response from Russia. The potential for Russia to retaliate with even greater force, possibly involving unconventional or strategic weapons, is a scenario that NATO leaders are keen to avoid. As such, while supportive of Ukraine's right to defend itself, NATO has also urged restraint and caution to prevent the situation from spiraling into a broader war. The United States, which has been a key supporter of Ukraine throughout the conflict, has taken a similar stance. Washington has praised Ukraine's resilience and determination, but has also called for continued diplomatic efforts to bring about a resolution to the conflict. U.S. officials have expressed concern about the long-term implications of the war, particularly if it leads to a prolonged stalemate or further destabilizes the region. The Biden administration, while committed to supporting Ukraine, is also aware of the domestic political pressures at home, where there is growing fatigue over the war and the costs associated with it. In contrast, countries that have traditionally been more aligned with Russia, such as China and India, have reacted with caution. While they have not openly condemned Ukraine for the attack, they have also not offered explicit support. These nations have emphasized the need for dialogue and a peaceful resolution to the conflict, reflecting their broader concerns about global stability and economic disruption. China, in particular, has called for restraint from all parties and has reiterated its position that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations should be respected, a statement that is diplomatically vague but indicative of its desire to avoid becoming entangled in the conflict. Potential future developments. Where does the conflict go from here?
The UK should be proud of the military support provided to Ukraine, following concerns that Ukraine has now expanded military operations onto Russian territory.
The Ukrainian attack on Russian soil represents a significant turning point in the conflict, and its implications are likely to be felt for some time. As the situation continues to evolve, several potential future developments could shape the course of the war and its broader impact on global security. 1. Escalation and counter-escalation. One possible outcome is a further escalation of the conflict. Russia, facing a significant breach of its territorial integrity, may choose to respond with increased military force, possibly expanding its operations within Ukraine or even targeting other areas outside of Ukraine in retaliation. This could involve more aggressive use of air power, missile strikes, or even unconventional weapons, raising the stakes of the conflict and increasing the risk of a broader regional war. Ukraine, for its part, may continue to pursue offensive operations, particularly if it perceives that such actions are necessary to maintain pressure on Russia and force a negotiated settlement. However, this strategy carries significant risks, especially if it provokes a disproportionate response from Russia or leads to further international tensions. 2. Stalemate and attrition. Another possible scenario is that the conflict could settle into a prolonged stalemate, with both sides unable to achieve a decisive victory. In this case, the war could become a war of attrition, with both Ukraine and Russia expending significant resources in a protracted struggle. This would likely lead to continued destruction and loss of life, further economic strain, and potentially greater instability in the region. A prolonged stalemate could also have significant political implications, particularly within Russia. If the war drags on without a clear victory, public support for the conflict may wane, leading to increased domestic unrest and potential challenges to the Kremlin's authority. In Ukraine, a prolonged conflict could also strain the country's resources and test the resolve of its population and its allies. 3. Negotiated settlement. A third potential outcome is a negotiated settlement, although this currently seems unlikely given the entrenched positions of both sides. However, as the costs of the war continue to mount, there may be increased pressure from both within and outside of the conflict to seek a diplomatic resolution. This could involve negotiations brokered by international powers, with the aim of reaching a ceasefire and establishing a framework for peace. Such a settlement would likely require significant compromises from both sides, including potentially painful concessions on territorial issues. However, a negotiated peace could also offer the best hope for ending the conflict and beginning the process of rebuilding and reconciliation. 4. Broader regional or global conflict. The most concerning potential development is the risk of the conflict expanding beyond Ukraine and Russia, potentially drawing in other countries and leading to a broader regional or even global war. This could happen if the conflict escalates to the point where other countries feel compelled to intervene, either to support one of the belligerents or to protect their own interests. Such a scenario would be catastrophic, leading to widespread destruction and loss of life on a scale not seen since World War II. It would also have profound implications for global security, potentially destabilizing regions far beyond Eastern Europe and leading to a new era of global conflict. A war at a crossroads. The August 2024 Ukrainian attack on Russian soil has brought the conflict to a crossroads. It represents a bold escalation in Ukraine's resistance against Russian aggression and challenges many of the assumptions that have underpinned the war so far. As the world watches, the decisions made by both Ukraine and Russia in the coming weeks and months will have profound implications for the future of the conflict and for global security. For Ukraine, the attack is a demonstration of its determination and capability to defend itself, even if it means taking the fight into Russian territory. For Russia, it is a wake-up call that its military and strategic assumptions may need to be reconsidered. For the international community, it is a reminder of the high stakes involved in this conflict and the urgent need for a resolution that ensures long-term peace and stability in the region. The war is far from over, and its future is uncertain. What is clear, however, is that the events of August 2024 have changed the dynamics of the conflict in significant ways. As both sides regroup and reassess their strategies, the world can only hope that a path to peace can be found before the conflict spirals further out of control. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, please give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. For more in-depth coverage on international affairs and military strategies, be sure to follow our channel. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're always in the loop with the latest developments. See you in the next video.